My wife cheated on me with her boss, then secretly sold our family home for $350K while I was abroad. Now she's claiming I signed away my rights in a shady property settlement. And I just found out she's hidden another $200K in offshore accounts. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing some long story about betrayal and revenge. But life has a funny way of throwing you into situations you never saw coming. The craziest part. It all started with what I thought was just a regular trip abroad for work. I was overseas for 3 weeks, and in that time my wife, Lisa, started behaving weird. At first, I didn't think much of it. She was always a little bitchy when I was away, accusing me of cheating or not paying enough attention. But then small things began to pile up. Texts she'd hide on her phone, strange late-night calls she'd dismiss as business, and an odd defensiveness whenever I brought up the topic of her whereabouts. It wasn't until I got back that I realized something was seriously wrong. The house felt different, colder somehow. Lisa was acting cagey, avoiding my gaze, and she'd brush off my questions with a forced laugh or a quick change of subject. I noticed a new phone on her nightstand, which she claimed was just a work thing, but I'd seen her hide it whenever I entered the room. That's when I started digging a little deeper. I found a bunch of receipts for dinners and hotel stays that she'd never mentioned, and some messages that looked suspicious, flirty, even suggestive. Nothing explicit, but enough to make my stomach turn. The real bombshell hit when I decided to check her email and bank accounts. I know, trust is supposed to be the foundation of marriage, but after all the signs, I figured I had to be thorough. And that's when I found it. An email chain with her boss, Mark, an influential guy at her work, discussing late-night meetings, secret rendezvous, and even plans to meet up outside of work hours. It was clear they'd been sleeping together for months. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I loved, was cheating on me with her boss, and they'd kept it hidden right under my nose. But that wasn't even the worst part. As I kept digging, I discovered that she had secretly sold our family home while I was away, without telling me. The house, the one we'd poured every penny into, the one I'd always thought was our future, was gone. She cashed out for $350, $0, and moved the money somewhere, probably offshore, considering the trail went cold after that. And now she's claiming I signed away my rights in some shady property settlement, all while hiding another $200, $0 in offshore accounts. It was like a punch in the gut every time I uncovered another lie. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly, cheat so blatantly, and then turn around and manipulate the system to cover her tracks? I was furious, devastated, and feeling completely betrayed. All those years we built together, all the plans, the dreams, gone. I thought I knew her, but she turned out to be someone else entirely. It's like she was living a double life, and I was just an afterthought. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to find where I went wrong, but honestly, I didn't see it coming. I thought I was with someone I could trust, someone who loved me. Turns out, I was just another mark in her game. I was blindsided by the depth of her lies, and now I'm left to pick up the pieces of this shattered life while she's out there, probably spending the money and planning her next move. After I uncovered the truth about the house and the offshore accounts, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her cold, calculated smile as she lied to me over and over. Betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was realizing how thoroughly she had manipulated me. She always played the victim, always had some excuse ready whenever I confronted her. "You're overreacting," she'd say. "You're paranoid," or "It's just work stuff, you're making a big deal out of nothing." But I knew better now. I'd seen the proof with my own eyes. The first thing I did was confront her directly. I called her at work one afternoon, my hands trembling, voice steady but angry. I told her I knew everything. I read her the emails, the bank statements, the receipts. Her reaction was a textbook display of denial and gaslighting. She laughed, told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. "You're just stressed from work," she said. "You always jump to conclusions, you're insecure." But I wasn't buying it. I knew she was lying, and I wasn't going to let her spin her way out of this one. She tried to spin me some story about how she was under pressure, how she was stressed. and how the affair with Mark was just a mistake, an impulsive thing she regretted. She claimed the house sale was a business decision, that I had signed some paper that transferred everything to her, and that the offshore accounts were just savings. I could see her eyes darting around, her voice trembling with anger and guilt, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I had all the evidence, and I knew her lies for what they were. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Every time I thought I was getting closer to understanding, she'd throw another lie at me. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. How could she do this? How could she lie about cheating, about selling our home, about hiding money? I kept asking myself whether I'd missed the signs, whether I'd been blind to her manipulations all these years. But the truth was, she had been planning this all along. She'd gotten good at hiding her tracks, at pretending everything was fine, even as she was betraying me behind my back. I started to question everything, my judgment, our marriage, whether I even knew who she truly was. I used to think Lisa was smart, a little bitchy sometimes, but caring underneath. Now I saw her as someone who was willing to destroy everything we built for her own greed and selfishness. I was angry at myself for not catching on earlier, but mostly I was furious at her for tearing our life apart for her own gain. I couldn't believe I had been so blind. I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living like this, constantly second-guessing her, feeling like I was walking on eggshells. I realized that I needed to protect myself, financially, emotionally, and mentally. I started talking to a lawyer, gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I needed to understand what rights I still had, what I could do to fight her, and how to get my fair share of what was mine. The thought of her spending my money, lying, cheating, everything made my blood boil. But I also knew I couldn't let her see how much she'd hurt me. I had to stay calm, plan my moves carefully. Every day since I found out has been a roller coaster of emotions. One minute I'm angry, the next I'm just numb. I keep questioning whether I should fight for the marriage or walk away and start over. Part of me still hopes we could somehow fix this, but deep down I know that trust is gone, completely shattered. And honestly, I don't think I want to try anymore. I've realized that sometimes people are just too far gone, and the only thing left to do is to take back what's mine and move on. But I'll tell you this. No matter how much I want to destroy her, I'm planning to do it legally, smartly, and with a clear head. I'm not just going to let her get away with everything she's done. After I gathered all the evidence and confronted Lisa, I decided I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. I needed a plan, a way to get what was rightfully mine and make her pay for what she'd done. I started talking to a lawyer who specialized in divorce and financial disputes. The more I learned, the angrier I got. It turns out, she'd been playing me from the start, selling the house without telling me, hiding money offshore, and lying about her relationship with Mark. All of it was a calculated move, and I had to be smarter than her if I wanted to come out of this with something. My lawyer explained that I still had rights, even if she was claiming I signed away everything. I had to prove the sale of the house was done without my consent, especially since I was abroad at the time. She forged my signature, or at least manipulated the paperwork to make it look legit. That was a huge red flag. The offshore accounts were another matter. She opened them under fake names, hidden the money in various jurisdictions, and kept me completely in the dark. My lawyer said I had a good chance of uncovering those accounts if I pushed hard enough. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act. She'd try to convince me she was the victim, that I was overreacting, that she loved me but was under a lot of stress. She'd cry, scream, and accuse me of being paranoid. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I knew her game. Behind her bitchy attitude and her lies, I saw someone who was willing to destroy our life for greed. I decided I'd fight her with everything I had, even if it meant going to court and exposing her lies publicly. The next step was to dig into her financial records more thoroughly. I hired a private investigator to trace the offshore money, at least, to find out where it was hidden. I also hired forensic accountants to look into her bank statements, her emails, and her phone records. What I found was shocking. She'd been funneling money into secret accounts for months, maybe even years. The offshore accounts alone held more than $200, $0, and I was determined to get my hands on it. I wanted her to know I was serious about fighting back, about reclaiming what was mine, and about making her accountable for her lies. While I was doing all this, Lisa started to get more aggressive. She'd threaten me, say I'd never get anything, that she'd fight me in court and win. She even tried to turn our friends and family against me, claiming I was paranoid and that I'd been abusive, completely false accusations designed to weaken my case. But I stayed calm. I knew I had the truth on my side and I was ready to go all the way. I started collecting witnesses, gathering proof of her lies, and preparing for the legal fight ahead. The emotional toll was immense. Every day I woke up feeling betrayed. Every night I went to bed angry and exhausted. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting. I kept replaying the moments when I should have seen the signs, but I also reminded myself that I wasn't the one at fault here. Lisa was the one who'd betrayed me, who'd lied and manipulated her way into financial freedom at my expense. That realization fueled my resolve to fight harder. I also realized I couldn't let her get away with it all without consequences. I had to stand up for myself, for what was left of our marriage, and for the future I still wanted to salvage or at least protect. The more I learned, the clearer it became that she was a master manipulator, someone who would do anything to keep her secrets hidden and her money safe. But I was determined to expose her, to hold her accountable, and to make sure she paid for the damage she'd caused. I didn't know exactly how it would all end, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going down without a fight. By the time I had everything lined up, lawyers, investigators, forensic accountants, I realized I had to act fast. Lisa was getting more desperate, I could tell. She started throwing more accusations, trying to turn the tables, claiming I was a controlling, paranoid husband who couldn't handle her success. She'd say I was jealous of her affair with Mark, that I was just insecure and threatened by her independence. It was all trash, but it was her way of trying to distract me, to make me doubt myself. I knew better. I'd seen the proof, and I knew she was lying through her teeth. One day, I decided to confront her head-on. I called her at work and told her I knew about her offshore accounts, about the house sale, everything. Her reaction was immediate. She froze, then started to scream. She told me I was crazy, that I was ruining her reputation, that I was just jealous because she was happier without me. She even tried to guilt-trip me, saying I was abandoning our family, that she was doing all of this for us. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I was done playing her game and that I was going to take her to court, that I was going to expose her lies and get my rightful share. That day, I started drafting legal documents. The house sale was invalid because I hadn't consented, and I had proof I was abroad at the time. The offshore accounts were a different story. They were hidden, but I had enough clues to get a court order to freeze them. I knew I needed to act quickly before she could move the money again or hide more assets. I also contacted the bank where she'd supposedly kept the offshore accounts, just to confirm, and sure enough, the accounts existed, with thousands of dollars in them. Meanwhile, Lisa's behavior grew more erratic. She started to lash out, accusing me of ruining her life, of trying to take everything she worked for. She claimed I was just bitter and jealous, that I was trying to punish her for having an affair, but I knew her better than that now. Her lies were blatant. She thought she was untouchable, that she could manipulate everyone around her, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I had evidence, I had a plan, and I was ready to fight back. I also reached out to some friends who knew her well, people who might testify about her shady dealings or her character. I wanted to build a strong case, not just for the court but also to make her realize she couldn't keep hiding behind her lies. The more I dug, the more I realized how deep her deception went. She'd been living a double life, and I was just beginning to scratch the surface. It was clear she'd been planning this for a long time, maybe even before we got married, and now she was trying to cover her tracks. The emotional roller coaster was relentless. Sometimes I felt numb, other times I was furious. I kept asking myself if I could ever trust her again, if I even wanted to. The betrayal had cut so deep that I wondered if the woman I loved was even real anymore. I knew I had to protect myself, both legally and emotionally. This wasn't just about money or the house. It was about my dignity, my future, and whether I could ever look at her the same way again. Every day was a new battle, but I was determined to come out on top. I refused to be the victim of her lies anymore. As the legal preparations moved forward, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. I knew I was close to exposing everything, but I also understood how much damage she could still try to do. Lisa's desperation was mounting. She started to lash out more aggressively, calling me names, accusing me of ruining her life, even trying to turn our kids against me. She'd scream on the phone, threaten to ruin me if I went through with it all. Honestly, it was exhausting, but I kept my focus. I had to stay calm, keep my eyes on the prize, getting back what she stole and making her face the consequences. One day, I received a tip from my private investigator. They'd found evidence that she'd transferred huge sums of money into a secret offshore account just days before I started the legal process. That was the smoking gun I needed. I immediately filed a motion to freeze her assets and demanded full disclosure of all her accounts. I also subpoenaed bank records, emails, and any documents related to the sale of the house. I knew she'd try to hide or destroy evidence, but I was prepared. I hired a forensic team to dig through her digital footprint, and they found encrypted messages with her lawyer trying to set up a backup plan if things went south. Meanwhile, Lisa's lies kept unraveling. She told me she was working late, but her phone records showed she'd been meeting Mark in secret, often late at night. When I confronted her with the evidence, she tried to deny everything, claiming I was paranoid, that I was making it all up. But I had photos, emails, and witnesses to prove otherwise. Her whole story was coming apart at the seams, and she knew it. That's when she started to panic, trying to bribe people, even threatening to go to extreme lengths to keep her secrets hidden. The court hearings were set. I was nervous but confident. I had all the proof I needed: her lies, the illegal sale of the house, the secret offshore accounts, the affair. I prepared my testimony, worked with my lawyer on the strategy. The day of the hearing, I sat in the courtroom, feeling a mixture of anger and relief. I watched her try to spin her story, but the evidence was overwhelming. When the judge asked her directly about the offshore accounts, she froze. Her lawyer tried to argue she had no control over the money, but I had bank statements showing otherwise. I felt a surge of victory, knowing I was finally going to get justice. The judge ruled in my favor. The sale of the house was declared invalid, and I was awarded a significant portion of the proceeds. The court also ordered Lisa to disclose every offshore account, and they froze the funds. The judge was clear: any attempt to hide assets would be met with severe penalties. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, but I also knew this wasn't over yet. Lisa was furious, but she was also running out of options. Her facade was crumbling, and she knew she couldn't deny the truth anymore. After the ruling, I started the process of rebuilding my life. I filed for divorce, not because I wanted to punish her, but because I couldn't trust her anymore. I also made sure my financial future was secure, closing joint accounts, setting up my own, and making sure she couldn't take anything else from me. The hardest part was dealing with the betrayal, knowing that the woman I loved had lied, cheated, and stolen from me. But I also felt a strange sense of closure. Justice was being served, and I was taking back control of my life. Looking back, I realize I learned a lot from all this. Trust is fragile, and you can't take things for granted. People are capable of hiding who they really are, even those closest to you. The most important thing is to stay vigilant, protect yourself, and never ignore the signs of betrayal. I also learned that revenge isn't about hurting her. It's about making sure she pays for what she did and that justice is done. I'm still healing, still trying to trust again. But I know one thing for sure: I won't let her destroy me, not without a fight. Now that everything's settled legally, I've had some time to reflect on what happened. Honestly, it's been a brutal ride, one I never expected to take. I lost my trust, my sense of security, and a lot of my emotional stability. But I also gained a clearer understanding of who I am and what I deserve. Lisa's betrayal was a punch to the gut, but it forced me to wake up and take control of my life again. I saw her for what she truly was, a selfish, manipulative woman who was willing to destroy everything for her own greed. That realization was painful, but it also freed me from the illusion I'd held onto for so long. I learned that you can't ignore the red flags, no matter how much you love someone. If something feels off, don't brush it aside. Dig deeper. Trust your gut. Because sometimes the truth is hiding right in front of you behind a pretty smile or a convincing lie. And when you finally uncover it, be prepared to fight for yourself. Not just legally, but emotionally too. I won't pretend I've fully moved on, but I'm working on rebuilding my life, piece by piece. One of the biggest lessons I take away from this is that money can be a powerful weapon, both for the deceiver and for the one fighting to get it back. Lisa thought she could hide her assets, manipulate the system, and walk away with everything. But I proved her wrong. I learned how to read the fine print, how to push back, and how to stand firm when it mattered most. Money isn't just about material things, it's about respect, fairness, and integrity. And I refuse to let her take that from me. As for her, I don't know what's next. Honestly, I don't even care anymore. She's shown her true colors, and I've accepted that our marriage is beyond repair. I hope she learns from this, that greed and lies only lead to destruction. For me, the biggest victory isn't just the money or the house. It's reclaiming my dignity and knowing I stood up for myself. I want anyone reading this to understand. No matter how betrayed you feel, don't give up. Fight for what's yours, stay vigilant, and never let anyone take away your worth, because in the end, integrity and self-respect are what truly matter.